Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network. The broadcast shows are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They are not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medical, or counseling advice. Individuals with a medical issue should always consult their healthcare provider. MS&Me is not responsible for content of individual shows. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own. Enjoy the show. Welcome to MS&Me Interviews. I am your host, Erica Lyons Richardson. March is MS Awareness Month. Each year, MS&Me partners with My Counterpain to produce an awareness video. These awareness videos are meant to share the MS experience outside of our MS community. Global outreach and education is a focused goal for MS&Me Media. So last year's video subject was, I am not MS, MS is not me. Patients living with MS showcase their lives as parents, writers, nurses, cooks, anything. They wanted to illustrate that MS is something they live with. It does not define them. For MS Awareness Month 2018, it's our hope to educate others on empathy. So what is empathy? And why is empathy important to someone living with multiple sclerosis? We hear so often from those living with MS that their friends and family, if they could just understand what they are going through, it would greatly impact their quality of life. We hear them, why can't they just understand? I've lost yet another friend. I've lost yet another family member. They did this to me. They did that to me. Why can't they understand? Well, the truth is that they can't. They can't understand. It's one of the top reasons expressed when they are driven to the point of being suicidal from their symptoms and despair. As you know, a sad fact, or I hope you know, MS has the highest rate of suicide for any chronic illness. The problem is that nobody can feel what's going on inside our bodies. Multiple sclerosis is a very complex disease. It impacts each of us in different ways. So although your loved one or friend might know someone with MS and their MS it could be a different type, stage, triggered in a completely different manner. So what do I mean by triggered? Well, MS is primarily a genetic disease. All autoimmune diseases come from the same family of at least 150 gene mutations. So even though we carry these gene mutations, it takes an environmental trigger to start the disease process within us. So the trigger could be viral, like the Epstein-Barr virus, the one responsible for mono. It could also be cigarette smoke, extreme trauma. There are many identified triggers, and there's also risk factors that make it more likely that you develop MS as well. So what's going on inside that others cannot understand, detect, or feel? The coating on our nerves is being eaten away, which can lead to muscle weakness or even death of that muscle. We are left with scars on our spinal cords, brains, optic nerves. This can lead to vision loss or in some cases blindness. We are progressing with our brains. They're getting smaller, losing neurons, the connections between them. This is called brain atrophy. Now, we can have constant maddening ringing in our ears and hearing loss. We can sometimes search for words that do not come. If we do, we can stutter or verbalize the opposite of how we feel. To you, our frustration can appear as anger directed towards you. We can have twisting, stabbing, aching, burning, itching, muscle pain, and skin pain. The nerve damage can impact our organ functions. And while we look like we're having a good day, our bowel and bladders aren't functioning. Our stomachs can no longer digest normal foods. Our lung function is diminished. Our heart function and kidneys make our day very difficult. And we can choke seemingly on air. Speaking of difficult, fatigue. Fatigue is not just being tired. Chronic fatigue is a medical condition that's also a symptom of many autoimmune diseases. It's like having the flu that never gets better. It gets so bad that many of us, you might even find us lying on the floor because we just could not go another inch, literally. The nerve and spinal damage can already make our legs feel like we're trying to move a ton of bricks. So add on fatigue, and just walking can seem like we're climbing a mountain. And we mean that literally. It feels that way. On the outside, you just see us walking across the floor. Add in the brain scars, and we might not even know why we crossed the room when we get there. We can have so many effects, seen and unseen. And if you just add in noises in the room, children talking, jumping around, sounds our brain may no longer be able to process all at once. For some of us, you can throw in headaches or more visible symptoms like vertigo, and it makes us feel like we're on a carnival ride. Tremors, foot drop, paralysis, arthritis or previous damage where it makes our gait uneven, can cause that uneven structures that can cause arthritis and pressure points. Swelling legs from lack of circulation and nerve damage. Well, unfortunately, the list is very, very long. We could go on forever. There's probably about 90 symptoms that I know of, and I don't know everything about MS. I don't think any of us do. It's so complex. We learn more every day. They're making new discoveries every day. And just remember that the way an MS patient was treated 10, 20, 30 years ago, completely different than what we know now. In the early 90s, there were no treatment choices available. They knew very little about what caused MS. And patients were not always so easily, diagnosed. You might have even had other relatives in your family who had MS in the 60s, 70s, 80s, who didn't even know their symptoms were from multiple sclerosis. The thing is that we often will compare. Well, my cousin has MS and they don't do like you. Well, my coworker has MS and they're still working and you're not. Well, have you tried this diet? My such and such said that they're cured from their diet. Well, the truth is there is no cure. The kicker here really is that I haven't even gotten to the management of the very powerful medications used to treat MS, and they're often debilitating or deadly side effects. What you might see is our hair loss, tooth decay or loss, flushing skin, rashes, injection site reactions, or what you might also not notice, or you might, if you're closely related to us, is the financial impact. Loss of friends, loss of loved one support, sometimes not out of caring, sometimes out of fear and misunderstanding. Loss of career, physical independence, walking, ability to drive. So it can have an just atomic bomb impact on how we define ourselves, our quality of life, the relationships around us. I mean, some of us, unfortunately, only defined ourselves by our careers or accomplishments or financial goals. And those can all just be totally wiped out by, some forms of MS. So we really need to understand how impactful MS can be on the life of the person living with MS, the families around them, which are also impacted, the communities that are also impacted, people living workforce, the nations beyond global, impact. We're talking financial. We're talking, the interaction, the interplay of people not being there in certain roles, people needing help taking care of their children. It goes on and on and on, the impact and reach of multiple sclerosis. Okay, let's transition here. Let's transition to the importance of the focus of this year's video. This year's focus is empathy. So what is empathy? It is not understanding. If it's not understanding, what is it? Empathy is the ability to share the feelings of another. So showing someone that you care about what they're experiencing and you want to help make their journey a little easier. It's very akin to showing someone compassion. How can you show someone living with multiple sclerosis empathy? Educating yourself on their disease. That's a great start. That way you can better anticipate their needs. Not being afraid to discuss with them their individual symptoms and treatment and their choices and their feelings, and not being afraid. That's what stops a lot of people to reach out and to not always be able to make things better for them. That's a big one. You cannot take away their MS. You cannot always give them their job back or give them the ability to walk back or be there every time they need you to lift something or do something for them, or every time you need them to take care of the kids. But any time you do it, it's a bonus. It's a blessing. So knowing that a symptom of MS is what we show on our faces, and it's what we show on our faces and the inflection in our voice. It just might not reflect what we're really feeling or trying to express. So if you detect anger, aggravation, sarcasm, that doesn't feel appropriate to the conversation you're having with the person with the MS, take the time to ask them if that's really how they're feeling at that moment. They may be totally unaware and surprised that that's what they're conveying to you. It can save relationships, literally. Knowing this is a symptom of MS can save a relationship. Once I learned about this symptom, and I didn't even realize I was doing it, quite honestly. I knew that the doctor had mentioned that I had more plain, unexpressive facial expressions, which I also have Parkinson's, so that I kind of expected. But I didn't know how that impacted sometimes what people perceived from me. The inflection in my voice, the words I'd say. I would just shout something like angry and a bad word that I would never use before in my life and did not even realize I was doing it sometimes. Especially after my first stroke, and I had some really big lesions and just really changed some of my cognitive abilities. I did not know that this was happening. And then another thing I didn't know was I was getting angry and frustrated and hurt by others around me, and I was misperceiving their facial expressions, the words they were using, and I didn't even know it. I thought people were yelling at me or displeased with me when they weren't. And that can also be a side effect. It's not really a side effect, it's a result of the MS damage. So we really have to learn these things. And once I did learn that, I was having a discussion with my mom and telling her about that. And she's like, oh, well, you mean 15 minutes ago when I thought you were ticked at me? You weren't really ticked at me? I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, yeah, a while ago when you were mad at me. I'm like, I haven't been mad at you all day. What are you talking about? It had literally just happened between me and her, and I did not realize it. So then I started thinking back, okay, how many times has this happened? How many friends have I lost or let go of, or family members that have thought I was angry or I did something inappropriate and they didn't even realize that it wasn't coming from me or my feelings, it was the MS damage? Or I perceived something from them, and I'm like, oh, well, I don't need that stress in my life, and I walked away. How many relationships are lost just by not knowing that one MS symptom? So knowledge is power, and it can really change the quality of our lives. Now, there are easy ways that you can show empathy to someone living with multiple sclerosis. Like if you know that heat or cold intolerance is a symptom for them, don't change the thermostat without asking. It can be very dangerous for someone, or just a couple degrees sometimes can make a big difference. When planning events, you can be mindful of these outside temperatures and possible, if it is possible, making it an indoor event or somewhere that is shaded, or there is some difference in the temperature that makes it, comfortable for them or safe for them, or there's people around who can make sure that person's safe, or they can wear their cooling vest and it will be okay. Just making those accommodations is showing empathy. And just so you know, anyone who is not familiar with cold or heat intolerance, you can look up and learn more about that later. But it can be a very serious symptom of multiple sclerosis. The damage that we have experienced makes it very hard for our bodies to regulate their core temperature. So if you get a little overheated, it's easier for your body to cool itself down on its own. It's easier for it to warm itself up on its own. For some of us with MS, if that's an issue for you, we can just get out in the backyard, a little bit warm that day, and nobody's out there with us. It can bring on all our symptoms, one of which could be muscle weakness. We go down, can't walk any further, and then we can't get back inside. Well, now we're exposed to those higher temperatures for a long period of time. And unfortunately, we lost a dear MS sister in just this way. By the time rescue got to her, she had second and third degree burns, and they could not save her. She fought in the ICU for a long time, but they could not save her. It's very important to know how your MS or in your life is impacted by multiple sclerosis so you can prevent these things. You can help them prevent these things. Now, a very important way you can show empathy, like I said, is to learn more about fatigue. It can hit at any time. We have to be very mindful of how we use our energy throughout the day. We have to prioritize the most crucial activities that we just absolutely have to have done. We're talking, get food for the kids, get to work, or, take our medicine, what have you, those really important, vital things. And then if we have no energy left for an activity or an evening phone call, we appreciate you realizing that it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with how much we care about you or want to participate. If you can anticipate us being exhausted at certain times of the day, like after work, at the end of the day, and you cook an evening meal or some little thing like that, or do our laundry, or help us carry something, help us watch the kids, oh, it's such a blessing. So learning and anticipating, it can just be a difference in quality of life. Now, empathy is all about the little things adding up to big things that add to our quality of life. Our kids helping carry in our groceries, our best friend doing our hair, our parents watching the kids so we can get some extra rest, our brother planning his party at a location that is wheelchair accessible, our husband asking the kids not to play with some loud toys in the same room where the television's on and we're trying to listen to his conversation. There's so many examples of empathy. Each of our needs are different. It's all about taking the time to learn the needs of the individual. Let's say your best friend is on a walker, she has MS, and your kids or your husband or you like to throw down your stuff at the end of the day when you come through the door. They like to kick off the shoes. They like to throw down the jacket. Oh, they like to set their purse on the floor. Let's just say that happens. Or your dog leaves his toys laying all over the floor when he's playing. And you invite your best friend who's on a walker or in a wheelchair over to your home for a visit. Empathy can be as simple as clearing the path, making sure they have a safe way to get through your home, and enjoy the visit safely. So empathy can be very easy to show to another person that's living with multiple sclerosis. Let's think of another example. Let's say that you know that this person has trouble with noise. They can't process noises. very easily. And you're planning an event. And you know there's going to be children and adults and music and other things going on. Now, do you pipe the music through every room at the party or the event? Do you set up areas where people are just running back and forth from area to area? You might reconfigure. You might think, okay, let's think of the person here with MS who can't really do that, and it's hard for them to get a break from the action if I just pump the music everywhere or make it all free-flowing. Let's have a kids' activity area. Let's have an area where there's music and drinks. Let's have a more quiet sit-down area where people can have a conversation and there's not 50 stimulations coming in at once and they can actually process those conversations. Another example. Let's say you're planning a girls' trip and you are planning a trip to, let's say, a place I know, St. Augustine, Florida. So it's pretty much a very great walking city. You can do walking tours, there's historic buildings, shops, the oldest city in the United States, okay? It was the first city in the United States. So it's very interesting historically. But instead of walking, all the girls walking and doing a complete walking tour, how about you mix it up? Part of it's driving, part of it is walking, part of it is you're taking the trolley and taking a guided tour. How about in the evening after dinner, you're on the carriage, the horse carriage, and you go on the horse carriage tour? You know, there's many ways to switch it up so you can be, empathetic to your friend who wants to come on the girls' trip, but she might not be able to make it all day walking through the city. You can think of her heat intolerance. If it gets a little warm, that's the time you suggest, hey, let's stop and cool off and have a snack. Or, hey, let's stop for lunch. If you see a bench and you see her struggling a little bit, hey, let's sit for a minute. Don't make a big deal out of it. Just part of what the girls are doing. And then you just go on your way, and everybody gets to have a good time. That is so empathetic and such a nice way to enjoy the day and spend the day with your friend who has multiple sclerosis. Above all, know that there is nothing that the person living with MS did to cause or to deserve MS. Learn that no two disease courses are alike. Even in twins, scientific studies have shown with MS, even in twins, no two disease courses are identical. You can have a mother, two identical twin sisters, and each of their MS is different. Know that stress is our number one enemy. And any little thing you do to reduce or prevent for us, stress for us is a good thing. Stress can actually cause relapses. It can speed up our progression. It can be the initial trigger for our disease to be triggered. Remember those triggers we talked about? Well, extreme stress and trauma can be one of them. So if that person is sensitive to stress, that means each time they're in a highly stressful situation, they may have a relapse. So do you want to get in an argument with them over a misunderstanding of the way they expressed or the way you expressed your words, or misunderstood feelings or expression on your face, or they already had so much pain and symptoms and horrible things going on inside of them that they were in some way pushed physically beyond what they should be pushed, and only they know what that point is, that it was triggered because you got in an argument because you didn't understand why they wouldn't keep going, or why they needed a nap and they just had a nap and you don't understand that. Sometimes literally no sleep is enough. Sleep can be very restorative for us, because what some people do not realize is, that coating I was talking about, getting eaten away from our myelin sheath, which is away from our nerves, that coating getting eaten away from our nerves that does the MS damage, well, that actually can be remyelinated or recoded per se. All right, so in other words, our bodies can heal themselves to some extent. All right, but to do that, they have to be in such a state that they can put all of their energies into that. So all the body's energy has to be able to be focused on repairing itself and restorative sleep and healing. To do that, you pretty much have to be in a complete remission of these symptoms. That can be done through medications, through other treatment choices, diet, and throw diet and exercise and supplements and all that on top of it, and it can really help. However, there are some very progressive, aggressive forms of MS where they just haven't found that magic bullet that can even stop those relapses. So let's remember that. It's never one size fits all, so do not judge an MSer. That's one thing that we really react to and really hurts us is the judgment. You can be sitting there and you just got home from work where you didn't make it to the bathroom and had that humiliation. You didn't get all your work done because of your cognitive fog and your extreme fatigue. You dropped the phone 10 times because of your tremors and your hand neuropathy. You embarrassed yourself because you fell in the hallway trying to get to the elevator. And then you get home and you're hit with judgment. Can you imagine? Well, that's life for some of us. And that's where some of our emotions and feelings come in. So if we can have that one person when we were in that moment and we just wanted to go into our bed and cry, but we knew we still had to get our kids from soccer practice or make dinner, and our neighbor showed up with a big pan of lasagna, they're like, we were like, I love you, it can just be that one thing that keeps us going. Does it erase all that bad and humiliation during the day? No, but it sure makes it a whole lot better. So I really thank you for joining me today. Every month should be MS Awareness Month. But know that it means that it means the world to us. When you wear orange, when you change your profile pics and add the little frame on it on Facebook that says something with MS Awareness on Facebook or other social media, or you tell others about MS. Please share MS information when you see us posting it on any social media. If I see one of my friends from elementary school or my former coworkers or a cousin share an awareness video I posted or tweet out some fact on MS that I've tweeted, it literally means the world to me. It shows that they care. Our lives and quality of life depend upon better treatment and a cure. Thank you so much again for joining me. And for more information, visit our website, www.msandmemedia.com. Have a great week, everyone.